Caterina Moruzzi, welcome to Where the Wild Thoughts Are.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
There's a lot of discussion about what generative AIs can do and the kind of things they can produce, and the question of, are they creative? But you prefer to focus on whether we can work with AIs to be creative.
Yes, that's correct. So I think when considering creativity in processes that involve both human and AI, rather than trying to decide whether AI is creative or not, I'm much more interested in considering the human-AI relationship that unfolds in this process, and really to ask what kinds of creative ecologies are we building? Are we designing systems that keep humans in rich and iterative dialogue with their materials and also with other communities, or systems that instead offload our creative agency? If we think about the development of the way in which we understand the concept of technology, if we go way back to the Greek word techne, which is the word where the word technology comes from, this meant a knowing, a process of knowing by doing, so the ability to use manual skills and perceptual activity at the service of the implementation of particular forms or artifacts. But modern technology changed that balance, and technology came to mean this operative setting of motion of external forces, and knowledge and practice, which were once together in this concept of techne, split apart. And it is this externalization of the human agent and the technology that AI is bringing to an extreme. So what I'm interested in is instead looking at ways in which we can go back to this original understanding of what technology is, and that is much more embedded and much more distributed and entangled, and to return to the original spirit of creativity as craft and engagement with the material as well. So that's what I'm mostly interested in.
Because we think of technology now as something that does something for us in a way, like a tool that you can just ideally hit a button and it's as little effort as possible and it will do the job for you. So that's really interesting to think about it in terms of craft. It does feel as if we've got to a point where we're almost trying to use technology to remove any need for craft or skill or effort. You type in a prompt and hit a button and something comes back. And I find it hard to imagine what else AI could be. We've only ever really interacted with AI in terms of that chatbot model.
Yes, I think what you say is absolutely correct. So we are trying to reduce all the effort and all the friction that we have with these systems, but actually introducing more friction in the processes and being more engaged with the material. So there are some examples of research and experiments that are being conducted at the moment to reintroduce this friction or rethink the relationship with AI beyond the classical chatbot model. So, for example, just to give you a couple of examples of recent work in this sphere, one is considering AI as a tool of thought instead of a tool for making and producing, and efficiency and productivity, which are now the keywords that are related to artificial intelligence, and considering AI instead of something that provokes us and challenges us. So there is this application, for example, that is called Oblique Strategy PT, and that is inspired by the oblique strategies. That is a method that was originally devised by Brian Eno and an artist, Peter Schmidt, to overcome creative blocks. And so this application is just one of many that are exploring this concept of having an AI as a provocateur that engages in discussion and challenges your thinking instead of having that sycophantic behavior that we are all used to with large language models that just tell us how great we are.
Yeah, it does. Whatever you ask ChatGPT to do, it'll just go, great idea, you should go and do that. How wonderful. Or yeah, here, I'll develop that for you. And it never says, well, what about this other direction? Unless you specifically ask it to. So what's an oblique strategy? How does that work?
So originally this oblique strategy, this method, was published as a set of cards that contained a provocative prompt. So basically you can just pick a card if you're finding yourself in having a creative block or not knowing how to proceed. You pick a card and it gives you this prompt, which might be, I don't know, think of something that is completely opposite of the concept that you're working on at the moment, or something like that, or like take a pause, go out for a walk, and so you follow the prompt, and it should help you in thinking in a different way to the task that you're engaged with. And so this application takes this inspiration from this method to encourage unconventional thinking in the process that you're engaged with.
Is that something that's available? Can people try that out?
Yes, it is. Yes, if you type oblique strate GPTs, yes, it's something. It's available on the internet, and yes, you can try it out.
I love that idea of how can we use AI to make us to help us to come up with better ideas, rather than just saying to the AI, "Oh, come up with ideas for me." That's really refreshing. Are there any other examples of that kind of approach?
Well, there are some examples for example, in the more image generation. Memo Acton, who is an artist and researcher, as some years ago, actually, together with Rebecca Fibrink and Mick Grierson, they developed this system which is called Deep Meditations. That is, again, a method that allows users to explore and navigate the latent space of deep generative models. So the latent space is this compressed representation of data in a lower dimensional space where data points are grouped together by similarity. And that's one of the ways in which these deep generative models, such as generative adversarial networks, work. And so this method that they developed allows you to explore this latent space and construct stories where the most important, the key aspect is to give more meaningful control over the narrative and the direction of the process. And this brings us back to one concept that we were touching upon before, I think, which is the concept of friction. So I think we all got used to the idea that good design is the one that you don't notice. So, for example, it should be clear if a door needs to be pushed or pulled. But yeah, how many times it happens in reality that you do the opposite because it's not well designed. And that's why talking about trying to reintroduce friction in the design might seem like something that is not desirable. But when designed well, friction can actually enhance the user experience and lead to a more reflective approach and a more meaningful control over the technology. So, for example, interruption is something that is usually designed into user interfaces to prevent the user from taking an action until they have thought about it. So, for example, when the computer prompts you to save your work before closing an application. And the same we can do with this interaction with AI technologies, and reintroducing friction as a way to increase the agency of the human user and triggering the switch from the system 1 to the system 2, so from an intuitive and easy and effortless way of interacting with the technology with a more conscious one that also leads you to pause and think, what is that I want to achieve with the use of this technology.
So it's almost like mindfulness in a way being injected in, that there's this being encouraged to sort of step back and think about what we're doing and be a bit more conscious about the decisions that we're making, rather than just sort of habitually taking an automatic decision.
Yes, it is. It seems that we are coming back to this concept of slowness quite a lot in this conversation, which is, I think, a key a key reflection that we should all make in how these technologies are pushing us to be more efficient and quicker and achieving something in less time, but slowness is instead a crucial part of the creative process and something that allows you to really be conscious and aware of what you're doing.
Is that related to meaning for you? Because it almost feels as if you reduce, if you take away all of the thought and the skill and the craft that's needed and the decisions that are needed, then almost the things that we're doing end up not really meaning very much.
Yes, it is absolutely related to meaning in the sense that even the concept of resistance or making an effort or the effort and time that it takes in going through a creative process is also what makes the process valuable to you, because you put an effort into it, and this is also one of the ways in which our human brain grows. So the concept of neuroplasticity is the process by which new neural pathways are formed when we encounter resistance. And so this is also the creative power of constraints. So they force you to think things differently and also to put more, not just effort, but also conscious effort in what you're doing. And with that also comes meaning.
Do we know much about the effect that using AI has on our cognitive skills and on our creativity? So the dominant approach that we have at the moment, where you can just put in a prompt, you don't need to think about it, you get an answer back or an image back. How is that affecting our own brains?
Yes, there are some studies that are being conducted at the moment. Some of them have already been published on the consequences that the cognitive offloading to the AI system is having on our brain. These studies have mostly been conducted in the context also of education of students and how students learn differently through the use of this technology. And one of the key concerns is that if we offload too much of our cognitive effort to these systems, one of the possible negative consequences is that of de-skilling.
And have you found that if people have the opportunity to interact with the AI in a more thoughtful way, that does the opposite, that helps to stimulate creative thinking?
In my research, I have observed how people who are taking time and conscious effort to think through how they might interact with these technologies come up with very original and insightful ways of using the technology that goes, again, beyond just typing a prompt on a chatbot interface. So, for example, I've already mentioned the fact of possibly using these technologies as a partner who doesn't agree with you and bouncing off ideas. I had one participant of a study that we conducted. He created this customized agent through ChatGPT, asking this agent to act as if they were the client, and so they were bouncing off ideas with this agent in saying, "Oh, if I present you with this sketch, what do you think?"
Do you think there's the possibility for AI to help us to be creative in new and different ways? Because that example sounds a bit like the AI is kind of replacing a person, like a human collaborator there. But are there possibilities for AI to help us sort of transcend in a way what we've been doing before and actually come up with new kinds of creativity?
That's my hope, that this technology can be used in this way. But I think one of the challenges and one of the barriers that might slow us down in finding this way of new creative modes or new creative processes is really the way in which these interfaces are built. If we stick to this interface that doesn't allow creators to have a meaningful control over the technology, I find it harder for new ways of being creative to emerge.
We're so used to just having a keyboard and hitting a key and seeing, text come up on a screen. But are there examples of other ways, like maybe more tactile ways, other senses, other interfaces? I don't know, how else could we incorporate AI into our lives, our thinking?
If we think about image generation, an alternative to the text interface, chatbot interface that we might have with systems like Midjourney or DALL-E, where you just type a prompt. Other systems like, for example, there is one called the Dragon AI, based on generative adversarial networks, that allows the user, instead of just typing, also to use the cursor to drag objects or change aspects of the image in a much more tactile and direct way. So still using AI technologies, but not using just the keyboard as an interface. There are other examples in the realm of music that instead use the keyboard of a piano to interact with an AI, like real-time musical duets between human pianists and generative models.
I read about a project called the Mimetic Poet, where they were using magnetic tiles with words on, like you get with the sort of magnetic poems that you could put on the fridge. So you had a limited vocabulary of words on these tiles, and then you could rearrange those tiles to make different phrases from the words, and then the AI would think about that for a while and type a poem in response, almost like on a traditional typewriter. So I loved that really sort of physical, tactile idea of actually moving tiles around. And there was one version of it that had knobs and sliders, so you could change the personality of the AI by like moving the knobs to different positions. So again, almost like this analog kind of interaction that was getting really far away from the idea of just tapping on a computer screen. So just different sort of physical ways of interacting.
Yes, I think it's the embodied side of the way in which we interact with this technology is a really interesting way also to think about how constraints, and in this case physical constraints, can enhance the creativity of the interaction and of the process.
Do you think that will help us to, I don't know, explore new spaces with the AI? Because one of the other risks that gets talked about with AI is that we get this homogenization of culture. And I've noticed it as well, that when you first ask ChatGPT to, I don't know, make up a poem or a story or something, it's amazing. It's like, it's so impressive. But if you do it more, you start to think, wait a minute, they're all kind of similar, the things that are coming out. So yeah, is that a concern with the AI that we have? And could rethinking what that sort of interaction with AI looks like help us to sort of break out beyond that?
Homogenization is a real risk, and this is of course due to the fact of how the training set is built. These models basically work on the basis of the training set that is being used to train them, and for that reason it's not possible to go beyond what is in the training set, and this leads to problems of reproduction of dominant styles that might be represented in this training set, of conventions and biases that are in this training set. Homogenization is not just a risk in the sense that is not conducive to more creativity and more originality, but also for this reproduction of dominant styles that are already embedded into the system. So so one way forward is for sure to rethink the concept of the interface, how we can use and interact with these systems. But another way forward is to rethink how we are building these training sets.
It sounds like there are so many different possibilities for how we could take AI if we wanted to, in terms of the interface and how we train them. How likely, or How optimistic are you, I guess, that any of these things might actually be implemented? Because the technology companies that are making these AIs are so dominant, and there's such a strong economic incentive for them to design AI in a certain way. Like, presumably they don't want us to slow down and do less and be more mindful. So how are we ever going to break out beyond that?
It is a challenge. I would like to be optimistic, and I try to be optimistic also because I think I'm in a privileged position in being able to interact with a lot of creators and creative communities who are really trying to use this technology in a responsible way and in a creative way. So I see also this other side of how this technology can be used in a way that is beneficial for creativity. But of course I'm concerned by also what you're mentioning. So the fact that the slowness that I am advocating for and the care and the carefulness in using this technology goes against this narrative of efficiency and productivity that is put forward with artificial intelligence. I think we have assisted to a lot of pushback from the creative community against how this technology is being developed in many fields, from the film industry to like more visual artists, and in respect to questions of IP and training set as we have mentioned, but also in how the worry that this technology might take agency and creative agency and control away from them. So I think that in the long run, this pushback will have results, because what we as humans value in the end is the human aspect of creativity.
We have been talking a lot about creators and professional creators and artists, but in terms of normal people in life, I mean, creativity is something that's really important for all of us to have and to be able to express ourselves in creative ways. When we're working with, interacting with chatbots, because that is the model that most of us have to interact with most of the time, how can we stay in control of that process, and how can we use AIs to maximize our own creativity?
The key word for me is critical awareness. So trying as much as we can to be aware of the possibilities, but also the limitations of these systems. So being aware of the biases that might be in the training data that we mentioned, and its representational limits, and also the hallucinations of the system. So when we interact with these chatbots, always double check if what they have told us is correct. So reflecting on why am I using it, what is that I want to achieve, and given the limitation that I know the system has, how can it best help me, but still maintaining this awareness of its limitation, I think is key in order to have a more healthy relationship with this technology.
Yeah, you make it sound almost like a meditation every time we're using the AI, just really being aware of what's happening with that interaction. Okay, last question then. If you could start again with AI, or just push it in any direction that you wanted to go in sort of 5-10 years time, what would be your wildest imagination for what AI could look like, what kinds of things we might be achieving with it, and how we might interact with it?
What excites me the most about this technology is what originally was exciting for me when I got into this field, which is the possibility that we have through this technology to explore different ways in which our human creativity and human cognition might work. And one aspect that I really hope that AI can help us explore more is this more in the entanglement that we have with the materiality of the environment and of the world, how human and non-human forms of cognition are entangled in some way and not limited to the individual human or the individual actor in general.
So do you mean almost not thinking of ourselves as kind of separate entities, if you like, but as emerging from all the interactions that we're having with our world, with our environment, and you're interested in exploring how those interactions with an AI, with a different kind of intelligence, might change who we are?
Yes, is the concept of the fact that our minds don't stop at the skin, so they extend into our tools, the tools that we are using, the environment and other living systems that we participate in. So exploring how these boundaries are more and more loose through the use of technology, and how creativity is being distributed across the whole arrangement. So not just us as the individual human actors who are using this technology, but also the technology or all the people who have contributed in building the technology and in building the data set that helps the technology to run. So expanding our way of thinking about creativity, not just to the individual, which is something, the legacy that the romantic idea of the individual genius left us with, and instead a more embodied and entangled understanding of what creativity is in the interaction with the environment.
That makes the whole discussion feel more urgent in a way, because it's not just about AI, it's that relationship that we have with it is fundamentally changing or shaping who we are as well.
Yes, we are part of this ensemble, and we are changing. We are continuously changing as the technology is changing. So it is affecting us. Just how much we are using it, it is also affecting us in return.